I'm Peter Godart. I am almost MIT lifer. Did my undergrad, my master's, and my PhD, basically in mechanical engineering. But actually, I spent probably more time doing music than anything else at MIT, which is super interesting. That opened up a lot of doors in my brain and also literal doors in my career too. So.
Right. Opening the doors of perception, as Blake says.
Exactly.
I'm Mary Fuller. I'm a professor in literature and chair of the faculty. My work is kind of at the boundary between history and literature. I've also done a lot of interdisciplinary teaching. I was just talking with Siddhu. I'm about to, I hope, teach a class next year with a colleague in political science on utopias and dystopias. So this idea of going from the humanities and connecting out to other parts of MIT is really close to my heart.
I'm Siddhu Pachipala. I'm a second year studying political science and computer science, economics, and data science. Something that MIT does with its political science is that it doesn't ignore the science part of that. And that's really exciting, sort of a rigorous understanding of why do decisions turn out the way they do? Why are people so dissatisfied with Congress? Those questions and understanding them in a rational way.
I think a lot about what counts as rigorous treatment of evidence in my field. And years ago, I was teaching Milton's Paradise Lost, classic sort of difficult poem thing that you have to read with other people. And I had a student in the class who was a student of Wolfgang Ketterle, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics. So this guy was really smart. And we went through the semester, and about 2/3 of the way through, he said to me, "Oh my goodness, I realize that there are falsifiable claims in literature, right? Like, you just told me that this assertion someone made was wrong on the basis of evidence. And so this is a real field." I was like, yeah. There are falsifiable claims.
What's funny is that as a sort of representative from capital S science, things are not so absolute and factual and rigorous as we like to believe it is. There's a lot of intuition that goes into physics and even math. Sometimes we get stuck in these little bubbles of understanding and process. And I personally think the only way to break out of these loops is by trying to access the future. And the only way you can really do that is through art. That's why I think like futuristic music, culture, and just across the board, like literature, science fiction is something I always turn to for inspiration, because you're allowed to think about a world that is much different than it is today.
I often find that it's coming away from the humanities classes that I leave the most puzzled and confused and interested, and that when I want something sort of quicker and easier and satisfying, I will do my P-sets for my math or physics classes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I love what you said about intuition, because I've heard so many stories from colleagues in science about the big discovery they made that was sort of at the periphery of their vision. They thought it was an artifact, they saw it by accident, et cetera, and it turned out to be the crucial piece of evidence that shifted everything.
The value of a humanities education is also just a realization that these things are complicated, and there's competing concerns that go into a lot of things, and that we have to resist easy answers, and that we can disagree without being disagreeable, that these are important habits of democratic citizenry, and sort of that is what a humanities education also does.
And you're learning how to do it. It can be messy, we can mess it up.
It's fun
to
talk through these things in class.